we blew up, I think 4 times before we ever got the car to a racetrack. So I grew up doing asphalt oval track racing, had a ton of fun doing that for probably 10 years, chased the dream, so to speak, trying to go to NASCAR and have a lot of fun in the process, driving Bandoleros and Legends cars and Thunder Roadsters, modifieds, late models, about everything you could do at Grassroots oval track racing. But at some point, the harsh reality set in that I didn't have $10 million in the bank account to go and really chase the dream the way that you have to do that. So just on a whim, called my wife and decided that we were going to sell everything we had for oval racing and buy a drift car. I found a old Nissan S13 that had got a LS swap in it. Somebody had started but not finished down in southern Louisiana. Paid him $4,000 for it, and it showed up 3 days later. And that was my first experience with drifting at all. And just started kind of building it, put together over, I don't know, the next 3 or 4 months. Took it out to a track had never been to and just started sliding. It was a lot of fun. I wasn't very good at it to begin with. I mean, you kind of had to unlearn everything that I had conditioned myself to do for oval racing because sliding is slow. I had to completely change my whole mindset of what to do and what was good and what was cool and fast and everything else. But got to play a little bit and do some tandem. Even my first drift day, kind of figured out how to not spin out eventually, maybe halfway through the day. And it was pretty cool. So that car, it went through some transformations. I ended up doing a lot of Grassroots events at a little series they had called KMS back in the day. We probably ran 20 events my first year. I had a deal with the local Nigerian tire dealership down the street that he would sell me any size in 17 or 18 that I wanted for $10. I just had to go pick them out myself and load them up, and he'd mount them, I think, for $5 or something. So we had a really good relationship there for a little while until that shut down. But then I had to go somewhere else and actually start paying some real money for tires. But I'd go to events and have like a 235 on one side and a 255 on the other, just, whatever it took to get to the track. But, I was doing it cheaper than anybody else there. So that part was pretty cool, and we did that way all the way through Pro-Am. Drifting in general at the Grassroots level is cheaper than oval track racing, and that's kind of why we decided to transfer over to that and sell all our stuff and go try our hand at that. I never really intended to do anything with it other than just go and have a good time with my buddies. The entry fees in general are actually surprisingly a little bit higher than the oval track stuff. But when you're only spending $5 or $10 a tire like I was at the beginning, it was net cheaper because you'd pay $500-$600 for a pair of tires or a set of tires for oval track racing, and then you'd have to change them every 2 or 3 races at the most. Whereas I'd go through 2 or 3 pairs of rear tires in drifting, but at $10 a piece, it nets out a lot cheaper. So we did that way for a couple of years. Ended up doing some Grassroots competitions and kind of figured out that I was pretty good at it. I ended up placing and ended up winning a couple eventually. What do you do when you win at something? You look at what the next step is. So that was Pro-Am for us with the drift series, and we did that with Streetwise Drift, and we kind of toured regionally in the Southeast, Orlando, Charlotte. They had an event up at Gresham Motorsports Park in northern Atlanta. So we went and did that for the first year. My very first event, I went up against a guy named Brandon Wicknick, and he was a Formula Drift Pro driver that had an issue and didn't get to qualify for Road Atlanta the previous day. So he decided to come down and pick on us in Pro-Am, and that was my very first competition battle in Pro-Am, and he absolutely wiped the floor with me. But 2 years later, I got my Formula Drift Pro 2 license, and I got my revenge on him because he was the first battle I ever won in Pro 2. When I got my license with Formula Drift. So that was a pretty neat little segue to, cap off that rivalry, I guess, that he started my very first event there. I had become a fan of drifting before I started, looking at buying a car. So I had gone to rode Atlanta to watch FD for a couple of years before I had gotten into it, but never seriously considered, going and doing that myself. But I knew what it was, and whenever I get into something, I kind of dive in head first. So I immersed myself in what the rules were and kind of what the judges were looking for, because it's a total different form of motorsport than anything else. I tell people that it's like boxing and ballet if you put tires on it. The way that it's judged, it's a very, very different thing than any other form of motorsports you'll find. The transition from just drifting for fun and drifting even at a pro-am level to pro really was an accident too. I had done okay in the grassroots level, and then I did pretty okay my first year in pro-am, and then my second year, I'm still competing. I can't leave well enough alone and just go do something just for the fun of it. I always am trying to push myself and be the best at whatever given form of anything I'm at. Like, when we leave here, I'm going to beat you to the door. So, I tried to push myself and develop the car some more, and we ended up finishing third place in points in that Streetwise Drift Series in 2000, I guess it was 2014. And that was what you had to do to qualify to get a Pro 2 license, was finish top 3 in points. And we did not look like we were going to have a chance to do that. I think I was 7th in points coming into the 4th round of 4, and basically had to have all the stars aligned to be able to get that spot. And, sure enough, somebody broke and somebody went out in top 16, and we ended up finishing, I think, 2nd or 3rd that day. And I think got the 3rd place nod by 1 or 2 points or something. So we left that day and was like, man, I never would have dreamed we'd be, top 3 in this series, and we just got our Pro 2 license. What are we going to do? Like, well, heck, I guess we got to give it a shot, right? We got this far, I feel like Forrest Gump, like you might as well, we came this far, just keep on going. So that's what we did, and totally different experience once we got to the Pro 2 level at that time. During the season in 2017, I had already recognized that the S14 was not going to be my in-game car for a couple of reasons. One, I had wrecked it really bad the year before in Orlando, and it really did never drive right after that. I think the car could have been fixed. I just didn't fix it right when I did it. It should have been taken to the frame machine, and instead I used Tamar's Jeep to try and pull the frame out. It worked for the time being, but it's probably not how it should have been done in hindsight. So I started looking for a car that we were going to build, and me being kind of the all-American Southern dude that I am, decided I wanted to build something American, and I've always been really into doing something different than everybody else. As much as I like, the Japanese drift cars and even the Camaros and stuff that had been competing at that time, I wanted to do something that nobody had ever been done, or that nobody had ever done, because I guess I'm a glutton for punishment to some degree. But we decided to build a 2016 Cadillac ATS. We didn't do a V because we were going to strip everything off that made a V anyway. So we just bought a base coupe and put the V body parts on it. We went out to Texas and picked it up. I was just looking on carpart.com trying to look for quarter panels because I knew if somebody had quarter panels for sale, chances are they had the whole car there. We ended up paying $2,000 for a shell that had been wrecked pretty good in the left front, the right rear. Didn't have a motor, didn't have interior, which was perfect for us. Took it up to my buddy John at Committed Service up in Delaware. Had him do some work for us, and got a cage put in it, and I pretty much built the rest there at my shop. And it was a terrible first year once again, as it can be with building a brand new car. We had just brought on Comp Cams as our title sponsor, and without them, I'm convinced we absolutely would not still be doing what we're doing today, because it was simply so miserable trying to get that car on the racetrack. For the first time, we blew up, I think, 4 times before we ever got the car to a racetrack. The engine came apart, I think I lost count, but it was somewhere around 9 times that we had it taken apart throughout the course of 2018. I only qualified for 5 or 6 of the 8 events, but finally towards the end of the year started getting it to stay together and build some momentum. And Comp stayed with us, even though we gave them every reason not to. But rolling into 2019, I finally kind of had it together, and we qualified for every event. We were able to do battle at every event. Didn't wreck the car or kill a motor too bad. Only one time that I killed the motor, and it was actually right at Texas Motor Speedway, and I had to drop the car as soon as top 32 was over, and I lost. I was unfortunately kind of expecting to lose at that point. I lost, drove the car straight to the trailer, and then got on a flight to go to New York to start the C2C in 2019. I didn't even get a shower. But 2019 was a really good year for us overall. I think we finished 23rd or 24th in points, which wasn't great, but it was a stark contrast from what we did in 2017, blowing up engines and not making events, and it was just a disaster. So to be able to do all 8 rounds and compete at all 8 rounds was a huge deal for us. But that brought us to 2020, and 2020 was our breakout year. The biggest difference in what we were doing different in 2018 and 2019 to what we did in 2020 is I drove a lot more. I did as many events as I could possibly do. There was a new startup series called Clutch Kickers that I took the car down to in the off season. We practiced and tested there. We won the first event, which was a money event. I think we won $3,000, which is a huge bump for us to start the season off. And I continued to run that series for the rest of the year. Ended up winning the championship down there. That was $10,000 to win each round and another $5,000 to win the championship. So made a good bit of money down there doing that series, which was really cool and really helpful for our overall program. That really ended up translating to on-track results in Formula Drift, because there's really good competition down in Florida where those events are run, and it allowed me to stay in the seat a whole lot more than everybody else, because it was right in the middle of COVID when all that started up, and that was pretty much the only series running. If you weren't running that, you were running by yourself if you were running at all, and running by yourself is not the same as full-on competition practice. So I was able to win my first top 16 battle at the first round in St. Louis this year. It was a very emotional experience for me, because we had tried for 3 years and had never won a battle in Formula Drift, in pro at least, and finally able to shake the monkey off the back. We beat my buddy Dean Carnage Carney, but he was a good sport about it and was happy for us that we were able to do that. And we ended up winning a lot more battles throughout the course of the year, got top 8 several times, and ended up finishing 10th overall in points. So huge step up from buried in the 20s the last couple of years to just driving and winning battles against legends of the sport that I look up to, like Dajiro Yoshihara and, like I say, Dean Carney, just amazing drivers that we were able to take down this year and, gain their respect, and just really looking forward to what 21 can hold this year. And I think we're going to have something for them.
Planning to buy a used car? Want to be on the safe side? Check to see if the mileage has been tampered with. It's easy with the Carly app and adapter. Carly. Learn more at mycarly.com.